Everybody, welcome back to Brotherly Love Gaming. I want to do some first impressions of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I played about 5, 6-ish hours of the game so far, and have a lot of thoughts on what makes it different than the original. What I think the overall plan is. I know by the time this comes out, obviously reviews are already out. A lot of people probably have already marathoned the game and finished it, but I want to still get my first impression thoughts out there as I'm playing through it, and then we'll do like a full review when we're done. The first thought that I had is that I feel like me personally, maybe people at large, but definitely me personally, I just had the wrong idea of even what the goal of this remake was in the first place. And what I mean by that is when you hear remake, you think of something like maybe the Shadow of the Colossus remake that they did a couple years ago is a good example. Where it's the original game redone, high defed up, all new assets, but it's still the same game. And we knew going into Final Fantasy VII Remake that they were changing some things, but I think even framing it as changing some things misses the point, because it's not as if they started from the original game and are then just tweaking things and then this is what the remake is. It's almost more as if, like, if you could imagine the original PS1 game as like a book, and then this is like the movie version of the book. It almost feels like they're not even the same medium, the way that they've changed this so much. The question that was on everybody's mind, even since the original announcement, when they said they were doing it episodically, was how can you possibly expand, the Midgar section of the original into its own full game? And what they did was just make Midgar the game. It almost doesn't even make sense to call it Final Fantasy VII, because it has the same characters, it has a similar story, in the broad strokes, but the game is about being in Midgar. It's about Cloud's. I don't want to sort of play to the end of his arc too much, since I know how the story goes, but like in these first opening hours anyway, the game is about Cloud, this guy who has a sort of mysterious past and is coming into this. He's an outsider basically. It's sort of a story like the stranger comes to town kind of a thing, and like a sort of Clint Eastwood, the man with no name kind of Western stories, where he comes into town and starts solving people's problems. I had some sort of misgivings about the quest system when they first announced that there was going to be more modern, I guess, side quest systems, a quest log that you can go through. But they do sort of lean into this idea of Cloud being a mercenary who comes into the Sector 7 slums, is looking for work, and just starts helping people. And that was like the bulk of what I've played so far, was actually just doing all these different side quest missions. And when you do all those, you end up unlocking like an extra, what I assume must be an optional scene with Tifa, which gives her some really great characterization. Um, it almost feels like it's not really fair to either game, the original or this one, to just call it a remake, because it's like a reinterpretation more than anything. Which I know Square has kind of like hinted at in some of their messaging, but also feels like they were in some ways maybe hedging their bets against really revealing how much was different. Even from the opening moments, I streamed my whole playthrough basically on our Twitch channel, Brotherly Love G1, and from the very opening moments, they changed even the opening sequence, and I was like, what are they doing? How could you change the most iconic opening, in maybe in all of gaming ever? And I think it lines up with the idea of it being like a reinterpretation. They're not just trying to do, a straight remake. It's not just a remake with a different combat system and a couple character beats and some new dialogue change. Like, this is a completely different game. It feels more like a modern, RPG, even with like, I even have like sort of maybe like the Spider-Man game that recently came out is sort of a good comparison point, in the sense that it's like you're playing, as this character who's in a space, and you're just like going around and doing stuff, and then there are obviously like story missions that you have to go out on, and those are a lot more what you might think of in terms of like a sort of traditional JRPG quest line kind of deal. But yeah, that's like my big meta take on the whole thing. In terms of like the sort of finer details, The combat system I'm really enjoying. It's kind of funny how I got 2 game overs in the time that I've played so far, and in both cases, it was kind of like really sudden that it happened. Like I went from thinking I was doing fine to just nope, I'm dead now, and then you get to just reset your game from before that battle starts. And in both of those cases, I went in and just steamrolled the enemy, and it was done, and I had no problems whatsoever. So that's kind of weird in the sense that, even if I'm feeling like I'm doing well in a battle, that it can just turn on me really quickly. I mean, I guess, any JRPG battle system can do that. If you just make like one mistake, suddenly you're, fighting for your life. But it does feel a lot more like an action game, even than I thought it would just from the demo. Because I figured out that you can actually, I missed this in the demo. It is in the demo, but you don't actually have to like pause and go into your menu to like do your ATB actions. So their whole thing was that you hit square to do basic attacks, and then you fill up your ATB bar, and then that's when you do spells and special moves and even use your potions. There's a shortcut menu that you can use, which ends up making it just basically feel like Kingdom Hearts in a way, where you don't actually have to go into the slow mode and make it feel more turn-based. If you want to, you can. You can absolutely just make it feel like it's more turn-based if you want that, but I feel like the game wants to move at a certain pace, and it wants to, have you do those shortcuts so that you can keep up with the pace of the action. Um, so far, I've unlocked Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. Cloud is excellent. I love basically every single thing that guy can do. Tifa I like, but haven't really had a chance to really figure out how she plays yet. She's got some really interesting, like her whole thing is based around just like doing combos on people, and she can like deal a lot of damage, and her one of her ATB actions just like makes her stronger and gives her like an extra move. Barret, I need some more time to be convinced on him because he seems very situational to me. Like I'll switch over to him if I had to shoot a target that's like up in the air and far away, but otherwise, you kind of just hold down square to have him fire his gun, and he like stands in place, basically moves really slowly when he does that, so it kind of breaks up again the fast pace that I think the action of the battle wants to have, which Cloud and Tifa both are very quick, fast paced characters. What else? So story wise, like I mentioned, they have a ton of changes even from the beginning. I like how much they've expanded the roles of Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, these sort of side characters who are members of Avalanche. They are excellent in this game. They were super minor in the original and kind of just filled like plot roles more than actual character roles, since they don't actually join your party in the game. The side quests that you get to unlock when you first get to the Sector 7 slums, they are kind of like fetch questy, really sort of basic, go kill the rats. Or literally is a go kill the rats mission that you can do. But it is, I think it's fine right now. I don't know if I'm gonna get sick of that by the end of the game. If that's just the whole side quest system, to just go kill this monster. But because of the fact that like the combat is fun, and there's like a sort of tangible reward for doing that, experience points, items, blah 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 blah. That's pretty cool. The upgrades you can do are pretty extensive in the game. They definitely kept the sort of what I call like spreadsheet gaming of like JRPGs, where you have to worry about all of your upgrades and you have all your materia that gives you your spells and stuff. So that's all in there. That's all great. It seems like they didn't really change that so much as they just modernized it, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, I guess I don't want to ramble too long. So that's really just my first impressions of the game so far. They've done a really great job, I think, of making each character feel, unique and distinct, and like they've developed and written these characters in a way that feels true to the original, but also is giving them more depth than the original ever really could, which I think is great, especially since a lot of people, I think, totally misunderstand the point of Cloud. So it's good that this one so far seems to actually understand what the point of the story is, and that makes me really excited to see the rest of this game and to see what they're going to do with the series, because yes, it's episodic. I feel more like now that the episodic nature of the series is going to be more episodic in terms of the way like the Star Wars movies are episodic, and less like, you know, a TV series is episodic. You know, it's not necessarily going to feel like this could change by the end of the game. You know, I don't know how the end of the game happens yet, but because of the fact that this one feels so much like it's Midgar the game, I feel like this is going to feel like a complete game, and the next one is going to be, you know, The Empire Strikes Back to this game, rather than just a hard cut, tune in next week kind of a deal, which is what I think that we were all thinking when we heard it was going to be episodic, because they were taking, you know, the original story and just slicing it into pieces. This feels like they're really adapting, you know, sections of the game, you know, so I'm really interested to see where it goes next from here. So if you're playing the game so far, don't spoil it for anybody, please. Just let's all, you know, be nice here. But I do want to hear what your early impressions are as well. We can all just keep talking about this as we're playing through the game. It'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, do that. I'm going to keep doing more of these, so subscribe if you haven't yet, so that you can continue to keep updated on it. And I'll probably keep streaming it also at Brotherly Love G1 on Twitch. I streamed like my whole playthrough last night. I wasn't really trying to do like any commentary or anything at the time, just because, you know, I wanted to like sink into it. But, you know, I feel like I get a sense of the game now, so I can just really talk if people want me to talk. But that's going to be it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.